Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our virtual stay at homecoming, our reunions and our family day, and all of the things that we planned here to make homecoming this year at least be something instead of nothing. So this is what we have. Let's make the most of it. I know there's been a lot of engaging presentations already and a lot of discussion from those of you who are attending. And I'm just thrilled that people could be here with us this afternoon to be together and to celebrate our UCI spirit. My name is Bill Maurer. I'm the Dean of the School of Social Sciences here at UC Irvine. And again, I'm just thrilled to welcome you. We're using this Aircast Studio platform. It might be a little different from things that you have become accustomed to during our Zoom-enabled pandemic. But after the presentation, as you have questions or would like to get into a discussion, please look at the bottom of your screen and click on the live Q&A button, and that will allow you to pose a question to our speaker. So again, please use the live Q&A button to pose questions for our speaker, whom I am absolutely delighted to introduce. Our speaker is Michael Marckx, UCI class of 1987. He's a jock, I'm just gonna say that, like right up front, and, and also a global marketing leader, brand strategist, TED speaker, and an event media and storytelling expert in the outdoor and sports worlds. He's the founder of Creative Disruption, a virtual agency he started after turning around Spy Optic, where he was president and CEO for 5 years. He's also the founder and CEO of Monuments of Cycling, which is the country's leading purveyor of world-class cycling events. Michael spent his entire career in various roles involving music, sports, marketing, brand leadership, filmmaking, and events, from creative director to CEO, chief marketing officer to chairman of the board, producer, and, as I said, professional athlete. His ideas and leadership have supported brands and organizations from the Surfrider Foundation to Adidas, Billabong, Ocean Pacific, Globe International, Surfing Magazine, and many more. A frequent lecturer and teacher on marketing, branding, and culture, he enjoys sharing the best practices and the pitfalls of running a brand while offering ideas on how to create success in this ever-changing world. He's currently serving as Chief Marketing Officer with Eliel Cycling and Wattie Inc., and he's engaged in various board and advisory capacities for Beachly, Leucadia 101, and Canyon Bicycles. He is the current Race Across the West record holder, former amateur world champion, and U.S. national team member. An avid masters racer still, he's also a surfer and musician. And with that, let me welcome Michael Marckx to our virtual stage.
Thank you, Dean Maurer. Awesome. Welcome back to UC Irvine. Welcome back to your university. Homecoming is always an interesting time, and with our current need for virtual events, this is certainly a unique one. It's an exciting moment, this time of pride and remembering. It's also a time of revival, renewal, and rejuvenation. There's new students, new achievements, new energy, and we're reminded where the seeds of our self-discovery found their purchase in the rich, verdant soil of the University of California at Irvine. I'm delighted to share with you my interesting road, if you will, which has led me back here to UCI, home, if you will. My road to self-discovery started just like everyone else here, with a really loud banging on the door at 4 a.m., with a bunch of men entering my apartment, kidnapping me, covering my head with a pillowcase, and whisking me away, but not without a fight. And yes, I was kidnapped. I was a junior in college at UC Irvine, and I had been a member of the Kappa Sigma fraternity since my O-week experience and rushing the fraternity. And over the next several years had managed to not pay a single dime to the university, or sorry, to the fraternity. So I owed the most amount of money to the fraternity, and I was being kidnapped to be punished for it. And the punishment was I was being whisked away to the mountains for a corporate retreat for the entire 120 fellas that were a part of the fraternity. And it was the type of corporate experience where you go through all these exercises and each one has a special purpose to bring the team together. The most poignant one for me, once they removed the pillowcase from my head and I could breathe, was the simple exercise of 2 team leaders, and each one gets to pick from the group who they think the most valuable leaders are in the group. And one by one, everyone else was picked except for me. I was the last one picked. And essentially, as the president of the fraternity at the time said, this exercise is meant to show that there are leaders in life and there are followers, but each one of us has a role to play. So I was deemed least likely to be president of the fraternity, least likely to be a leader. And it made me think, these guys don't know me. How is this? I've been here for 3 years and it was my fault. I hadn't attended any of the fraternity meetings. I was busy playing in a band, playing soccer, surfing my brains out. Occasionally I went to classes, and I went to a lot of different classes too. But essentially these fraternity brothers of mine, they didn't know me. And that Sunday they drove me back down the hill without the pillowcase on my head, dropped me off in Newport. And the next day was Monday. Monday's the day that all the fraternities meet. Our particular fraternity wears a tie every day. We meet at 6 p.m. And I decided to go to what was essentially my first active fraternity meeting, wore the tie, did the whole thing. And at the meeting, the treasurer, the executive board has a treasurer on it. He quit. He had 6 months left in his term. And it was too much work for him to chase people like me that owed money, and the fraternity was suffering as a result of not having the funds to do all the great things that they wanted to do. So they had to have an election, and 2 people were elected. They were both in accounting majors. It made sense. And then someone jokingly pointed at me at the back of the room and said, hey, what about the guy who's least likely to be a leader? What about him? I nominate him. Everyone laughed at my expense, which was great. They went through having the 2 guys, the 2 candidates, if you will, give their speech. And then they went to vote. But then someone said, no, there's still a 3rd candidate. They have to speak. So me, the least likely to be a leader, least likely to be president, I got up and I gave an impassioned speech. I said, you guys don't know me, but I owe more money than anyone else in this fraternity. And I will promptly pay my dues, and I will get everyone else to pay, because you know what? They all owe less than me. How hard can it be? And miraculously, the guy who's least likely to be a leader was elected to be the treasurer for the next 6 months. And I got busy getting every single one of the other deadbeat fraternity brothers to pay. And all of a sudden, by the end of the 6 months, not only were we flush with cash, but I'd instituted a number of money-making events, particularly one that was a concert not unlike Lollapalooza at the time, where we had great bands and Coors giving us money and 50 kegs. And it was a fantastic time. So 6 months later, at the end of my term, I was elected president of the fraternity, the largest fraternity on campus, which is, or was at the time, Kappa Sigma. So in that short amount of time, 6 months, I went from being sort of this quiet person that didn't attend, that didn't engage, that didn't do things, to being the president of that fraternity. And what happened for me during that time was I began this journey of self-realization and self-discovery that culminated in this simple idea that I think is important for all of us. Let's not let the world figure out who it is that we are. Let's show them every day. Let's show them on our social media. Let's show them how we communicate. Let's be the impassioned, powerful person that we can be, and don't wait around for an invitation to do it. So that's that takeaway, and I'd like to go to the next slide if we can. So backing up a bit, surfing is what brought me to UCI. Of course, it's a great college. There's all sorts of great things. My dad was running IBM in Orange County, which was not far from UCI. And he said, son, I want to take you down. Let's check out UCI. It's a great institution. So we went and we did a tour together, father, son, great time. And afterwards, he did the smartest thing. He took me down to Newport Beach. And on that particular day, the waves were incredible. And he knew that surfing was just about the most important thing in my life, other than maybe racing my bike or playing music. And when we got down there and I saw the waves, I couldn't believe what I saw, and I committed that day. And I am so grateful that I did. But it was my dad's trickery, if you will, that took me down there to see those waves. So the next summer, a month after my friend Tom Martin and I both turned 18, we traveled down in the station wagon, moved into the Playa Nubes dorms. We brought all the things that are important, a refrigerator for our beer, all of our albums, because that's what we had back then, drum sets, surfboards, things that were important to living in the dorms. And I must say that I wasn't the most popular kid in the dorms because I played the drums all the time. But that was a fantastic experience, and I never stopped playing the drums. On a side note, Tom Martin went on to do great work as a TV comedian, a TV producer, a TV writer, and won numerous Emmys for his work with The Simpsons, but also worked on Saturday Night Live and a whole bunch of other stuff. Another great experience at UCI. Next slide. So what I discovered at UCI was the opportunity for growth. I was a small kid when I arrived at UCI, and I grew 5.5 inches in my first year. Maybe a lot of it was just eating the dorm food 24/7, surfing and enjoying myself. But what really happened for me was I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an architect, so I went with civil engineering, but all of a sudden I was being exposed to these incredible teachers across the board. So for me, I sampled it all. I took engineering, fine arts, writing, physics, accounting, poetry, political science, social ecology, and I even managed to successfully audition to perform in a rock opera that the university was putting on, and I got to play the crazy drummer. No surprise there. But this isn't to mention the athletic pursuits of playing soccer, running, swimming, cycling, and then the service that I had on the student body, and of course the fraternity as well. And I also worked. So I eventually graduated with an economics degree, but what I did at UCI was sampled everything that I could, and particularly within the social science community and the school. And what I took away was not this specialized pursuit of economics. I took away this great education as a generalist. And I'd like to go on to the next slide if we can. So at UCI, because there's so many good programs of focused academic work, it's easy to spot the specialists. They're the ones that are focused and at the library a lot. And then the generalists like myself, we're taking as many classes as we can. We're bouncing around from building to building and taking it all in. And that's what it was for me, just this overwhelming experience of drinking from a fire hose. And of course, there's plenty of experts out there that say, or at least they argue, that anyone who wants to develop a skill, play an instrument, or lead their field should start early, focus intensely, and rack up as many hours of deliberate practice as possible. If you dabble or delay like I did, you'll never catch up to the people who got a head start. At least that's what they said. But a closer look at the research on the world's top performers, from professional athletes to Nobel laureates, shows that early specialization is the exception, not the rule. So I guess my ADD paid off. Is that when you examine the world's most successful athletes, artists, musicians, inventors, forecasters, and scientists, it's been revealed that in most fields, especially those that are complex and unpredictable, generalists, not specialists, are primed to excel. Generalists like me often find their path late in life. They juggle many interests rather than just focusing on one. They say that they're more creative, more agile, and more able to make connections that their specialized peers can't see. And maybe they're right. It certainly worked out for me. I'm the case study for actively cultivating inefficiency. I found that failing at things was the best way to learn. Frequent dabblers like myself often end up with fulfilling careers, and luckily for me, that was the case. The most impactful inventors across domains rather than deepening their knowledge in one single area. As experts silo themselves further while computers master more of the skills once reserved for highly focused humans, people who think broadly and embrace diverse experiences and perspectives will increasingly thrive. And creativity is more valuable now than ever, I would argue. And it requires an openness, even a thirst to understand how others interpret the world. I would also say being in a silo can not only be stifling, but it gets boring pretty fast too. Next slide, please. So I have a ton of fond memories, as you can imagine, from UCI, but there's one that I've taken with me to every corner of the planet and used in every setting possible. And it's these three simple words that you see on the screen. These words are the words that I share with my students, coworkers, teammates more than any other words. So my final paper senior year was in sociology. I had a professor named Bernard McGrain. He was just awesome. I took a number of his classes. And I actually chose the idea of education and what it means as my focus. And as a result of all the things that I had been doing for that final effort at UCI, I tried to combine the love that I had acquired through humanities and the social sciences. So I had my poetry to lean on. I had critical thinking. I had a number of things that I incorporated into one really long, what I felt was a stellar piece of literary work. The prose, poetry, and analytical thinking were all woven into this crazy, crazy thing. And if anyone remembers back in the day when they had word processors, which predate computers, my word processor froze at 3 a.m. the morning that my paper was due. And there was nothing there. My paper was gone. So I did what any one of us would do. I picked up that thing and I threw it out the window and I quit school. Okay, well, I didn't quit school. I regrouped. I got a lot of caffeine in me. And then I focused on remembering the essence of that paper. And I recrafted it and honed it, made it a more pointed, creative piece in just a couple of hours. And then I submitted it. And Professor McGrain, in red letters, wrote A+ and keep it going. And to me, those are the most powerful words ever, because I went out on this limb. I was being bold, doing this thing that, incorporating all these different things. And when he wrote that, what those words really mean is you are right. You're on the right track. You and your work are valuable. You must not stop this pursuit of reaching, aspiring, and growing, and being bold. And I carry that with me every single day. Next slide, please. So I left UC Irvine with all the security, the university, my teachers, coaches, Professor McGrain, my fraternity brothers, roommates, teammates. They all gave me this confidence to go out into the world. And what I did is I quickly made the US national team as a triathlete and was soon competing in the World Championships in France. I was also starting to play a lot of gigs with numerous bands. So I had this bifurcated life where at night I'd be playing music and drinking beer and living a crazy life. And then in the day I would train, I would swim, I would bike, I would run. And sometimes there was this nuisance in between those things called sleep. And I would just not sleep. I'd go and do the things that I love to do. Eventually that catches up with you. It's not recommended, but that's how I live my life. But still reeling from the experience at UCI, I possessed this security to be inquisitive and to continue this quest for learning and athletic and musical growth and writing. My first year out of UCI was incredible. Next slide, please. And then it wasn't incredible. Boom, I was hit by a car in the blink of an eye the night before a really big race. So my success was fleeting. And this was the first of 6 painful encounters I would have with cars over the years. This one was particularly bad. I had 18 months of rehab and my athletic career was seemingly over. I had to pick up the pieces and figure out a new career for myself. But fortunately, I had all these other interests in the music going on. But what I did is I went to go work in the warehouse of my main sponsor. So I went from being a world champion, promising young pro, part of a world-class team with Lance Armstrong, to literally shipping my other team boxes of the product that we all would wear. And that became my reality. But what I did is I became the best warehouse worker that I could possibly be. And eventually they allowed me to work in the marketing department, which was my first marketing gig. And I consider myself a marketing person. But even that didn't last long. If we can go to the next slide. Now I've done a TED Talk about this particular phase of my life. The TED Talk's called "Belief is a Thought You Keep Thinking, Don't You Think?" And I recant this incredible story of spending 90 minutes with the psychic, and these deeply personal things that she knew about me, my past, and of course my future. Now, mind you, this was all before Al Gore invented the internet, so there's no way she could have Googled me and figured out these things about me. And what she did was blow me away from the minute I walked into her beautiful home. She immediately said to me before we even sat down, "Listen, I know your dad is very sick, but I want you to know he's going to live. He's going to be okay." And that just floored me. Like, how would she know that my dad's still alive? How does she know that he's sick? How does she know he's going to be better? But I was grateful. And then she spent the next 60 minutes telling me a bunch of things that I really didn't want to hear. First was, "Hey, I know that you race your bike and that's important to you, but you're never going to go on to the success that you've previously had. You will continue to do that. You will be active. You will ride your bike. You will race, but you're not going to be a world champion again. You're not going to enjoy that." Of course, I didn't want to hear that, as I still believe that I could. And then she said, "Now tell me about the 2 bands." And again, how does she know I have even 1 band? But she did this. She goes, "You're a drummer." And she goes, "Tell me about the 2 bands." And then she goes, "Let's start with the band with the big heart," which was called More Love Now. She basically listened to me, and then she said, "Yeah, they're going to go on to great success in other guises, and it's not going to include you." And then she said, "This other band that you're in, whatever you do, you need to leave that band immediately. It's toxic. It's terrible. Get out." And of course, I didn't want to listen to her. The band was about to be signed to Atlantic Records. And what does the psychic know anyway? So we went on with this stuff. She told me a lot of things that I didn't want to know. And then at the end, she had something really profound to say. She said, "Listen, you may not like what I've had to say, but you are going to go on to be tremendously," her word, not mine, "successful in business." And I just my heart sunk. I was like, business? I work in a warehouse. Business is what my dad does. I'm either going to be a drummer or an athlete. I am not interested in business. And she said, "No, I'm sorry. That's not the case. You're going to be a businessman. You're going to do interesting things. And mind you, you're going to be involved with music. You're going to be involved with athletics. All of those things you're going to take with you. Oh, and there's one other important thing you should know. Tomorrow, the phone's going to ring. It's going to be from a guy whose name begins with an S, and his hair is brown and down to about here. He's going to offer you a job, and you must take that job." Sure enough, the next day, phone rang at the end of the day. And it was a friend named Scott Zagarino. And he hired me to go and work on the Hawaiian Ironman, a race that I had been planning to race. There's the World Championships for triathlon. And instead, I got to go and work there for Gatorade. And I became the executive director of Gatorade's Ironman there. And it forever changed my life. So this one incident, this one thing set me on a path that I'd never considered because I'd been focused on these things here. But when I opened myself up more to the possibilities that the psychic shared with me, great things manifested from that. So let's go on to the next slide if we can. So what happened is, from that one meeting, my orientation to life completely changed. With the help of one person, I had this overnight paradigm shift in which I went from being this broken athlete to beginning a career that would eventually take me all over the world, creating and directing world-class events, publishing industry-leading magazines, producing TV shows and films, creating product innovations, and being the president and CEO of a publicly traded company and the chairman of the board of the Surfrider Foundation, and all these various and disparate things, all of which I was really interested to do. Just had no idea that those things were available to me. And during all those years, I still played music. I still play to this day. I still surfed. I raced my bike. I did all of those things just like the 23-year-old I was when I left UC Irvine and began my athletic career. And sure, I may not be tremendously successful just yet, but I've been blessed to work on all sorts of things that I'm passionate about. And all of this began at UCI. So the takeaway for this too is, we don't need a psychic to tell us it's all going to work out. I was just lucky that I was given that gift. But you should just know it's going to work out. And because you know it's going to work out, this is your invitation to believe in yourself and to be bold, to reach a little bit more, to get out there and get outside your comfort zone and to manifest the destiny that you're capable of doing. Next slide, please. So if you knew it was all going to work out, wouldn't you be even bolder? Wouldn't you go harder? Wouldn't you give it your all? You're not going to fail. Oh, but wait, maybe you will fail, right? The psychic told me that I was going to be tremendously successful. She didn't also say, oh, by the way, you might fail at a couple things or get hit by 5 more cars. She just said, here's your North Star. You're going to be over here. And I believed her, and I was right. Shouldn't you do the same? Shouldn't you be armed with the same information and know that things are going to work out? You have the permission to be bold. Success comes in many forms, but it can only truly occur when you're open to failure and when you're willing to be bold and not just accept mediocrity. True success isn't a finish line either. It's a part of this ongoing journey that is as much about the process as it is about the outcome. And ultimately, success isn't about how much you have. It's about how often you get to give back. That's what feels best. That's what success is, which takes us back to us, our homecoming, and what it all means, and the penultimate slide here. We all have certain images of UCI, our home, from our formative years, images that get reinforced when we have the opportunity to return to this special place, virtually or otherwise. There's this wonderful sense of home, of the security and optimism that the university offers us. And in a very real sense, this institution becomes home for students during our time, this time of our lives. Just as it is for the faculty and the staff, UCI remains the home for its alumni as well. In the greatest sense, there is this importance to the University of California at Irvine that it can't be denied. And there's little doubt that the college experience probably has as much impact on our lives, especially the work that we go out into the world and do, than any other thing. I know that was the case for me. It set me on that journey that I've shared a bit with you. And I was well prepared for all the varied and crazy things I would end up getting to apply my learnings and curiosity to. So wherever the journey may take us, UC Irvine is that home. It's that reminder of security, that cornerstone or foundation from which we continue to reach and contribute and be bold. It's a tie to the values, it's the guardrails that guide our pursuit of service to a greater good. And just as the university means so much to us personally, we too mean so much to the university. UCI's importance isn't so much the achievements of the sports teams or the academic wizards of any 4-year stretch, and that stuff is all really important. The true importance is what we as alumni do out in the world that shines a light back on the university through our careers, our contributions to communities, and our commitment to excellence. All that shines back on this great institution. The UCI family is not only the current students, faculty, staff, and all the greatness they will achieve. The family is also all of us who've added to the legacy of the university, stretching back in time, maybe not as far back in time as I go, but at least to 1965, when it was founded with this mission to catalyze the community and enhance lives through rigorous academics, cutting-edge research, and dedicated public service. We, the UCI family, have the implied honor of fostering that mission, cultivating its promise, and giving it lasting vitality. I'm not here to pitch you on getting actively involved with your alma mater, but you're here now, and I'm stoked that you are. But I hope you can feel my gratitude for this special place, its incredible faculty, the students and staff. I'm here to share with you the joy I feel when I look back on my career and the formative role, the experiences and relationships I took with me, which UCI gave me all those years ago. With that, I'd like us to just take 10 seconds to think back on our time at UCI. Think about that one friend, the one professor, your counselor, maybe it was your coach, anyone that really had a lasting impact like Professor McGrain had for me. Just think about them for 10 seconds. I'll keep an eye on the clock. So if you're like me, probably a lot of people came flooding through your mind about your time here. You weren't able to focus on one person, which is great, but maybe after this, you can reach out to one of those people you haven't connected with in a while and share something and reminisce about the wonderfulness of UCI and your collective experience. I think everyone will benefit from that. Final slide, please. So we cannot go on to achieve our most without those inspiring us to reach for more. There are teachers, our coaches, our mentors, our teammates. And we cannot go on to achieve our greatest fulfillment without being in service to others, our teammates, our coworkers, our community, the family, or maybe just those that are in need. And we cannot accept gratitude without first acknowledging our indebtedness to those who sacrificed for us. And homecoming is our chance to celebrate the existence of our home and to look back with pride. And it's also our chance to consider what we can do to keep it going. And that's what I'd like us to leave with. Let's keep it going. Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much for that inspiring talk. And also thank you too for getting us to reflect back upon those moments in our own lives, whether you're a UCI alumni or an alum of another institution, that really were those moments that kind of pushed us and made us make these sort of crucial decisions about who we wanted to be and where we were going in our lives. You know, I've got a couple of questions right off the bat for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
First, you know, I know that there are some parents here. There's parents of current UCI students, and there's also some UCI alums who themselves are parents and who have students in college or contemplating college. And, you know, I'm going to ask you, what advice would you give to a parent? But just the reason that this pops into my head is I can very vividly remember the day that I called up my mother from college and told her that I was going to no longer be a biochemistry major, but instead pursue anthropology. And she freaked out, right? Like her whole kind of vision of my plotted life, like evaporated before her eyes. I was supposed to be a medical doctor, or, you know, I don't know. She was really into Quincy, if anybody remembers that show. I did not want to be a forensics person or coroner, but somehow this was part of her vision for me. I don't know why. But one of my mentors at the time actually was like, I'll give her a call. And I was like, really? And her name was Colleen Cohen. And her talk with my mom was all about what you were just talking about earlier, about kind of the value of the generalist perspective, right? And kind of being able to think in a bunch of different modalities, having exposure to a bunch of different fields, so that no matter where you step forward in life, you're basically ready for whatever life throws at you. So I wonder if you could just sort of address the parents for a moment or two based on your story here and your experiences.
Yeah, I know I can't be seen right now, but hopefully I can be heard, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
I don't think I'll be able to fix the screen right now, but I will say the having just sent my son off to college, what I had to do was learn to listen to what his desires were and what he cared about, and what he was interested in. Even if, I wasn't certain that that was the thing that he should do, I had to sort of let go a little bit and let him have that journey, let him figure out what he wanted to study and how he wanted to study, where he wanted to live and how he wanted to do those things. So I know for me personally, having just done that, the idea of being a bit more open to listening and being more of a sounding board than a parent, right? I think that was a really vital thing in sending him off. But also, as I mentioned in my talk, with the experiences that I had through social sciences, there's so many different things that we can apply ourselves to, that we can learn, that we can do, and then take out into the real world, that, you know what, maybe we don't figure it out for a few years. Like, I finished with an economics degree and I haven't used any of it the last however 40 or 50 years. But what I do access is all the incredible things that I learned in fine arts and with Professor McGrain, and all the classes that I took in social science and the things that I learned. So I think just being open at this point and having dialogue about it is really important.
Thank you. And, I also wonder on that point of kind of encouraging people's passions, encouraging people to explore, encouraging that generalist mindset. In your own career, you've gone through so many different sort of disciplines, for want of a better word, right? From athletics to music to brand management and marketing to education. I wonder if there's things that you pick up along the way from each of those that then you apply to the others, or whether, what you got from, I don't know, your drumming career is sort of over and doesn't impact you anymore.
Yeah. I think that I feel bad that I'm not able to share the screen, but for me, I think that the valuable takeaway that is I'm still experiencing to this day is that our journey doesn't have to be this straight line, right? Maybe the journey has this sinuous, bumpy road, but it's still headed in. It's still headed towards that North Star. Those things that were so important to me all those years ago. They still remain important. They still guide me. But I'll tell you, it's kind of like a tree that grows. The tree is always aspiring to reach higher into the sky, but there's also new branches that come out from the tree. And those are experiences or jobs or things that we do. And those branches, they grow leaves, which then feed the tree to grow taller. So for me, it's the vastness, the vast potential of continually to experience and sample and grow and learn that allows my tree, if you will, to keep growing taller and aspiring to reach that North Star.
Thank you. I also wonder, since you showed us the picture of the bike getting run over, right? But then you didn't talk too much about kind of cycling in your journey. And I know that that's very important to, what you're all about now and where you've been. And again, I was struck that you started with surfing and then it became cycling, but then you got hit by a car. And then, we know that cycling kind of came back, but where did that enter in and how did that enter in, especially after that accident?
Yeah, so I did my first road race when I was 12 years old. My parents were avid cyclists, and my dad was a marathon runner too. So at age 12, I ran my first marathon and did my first road race. And that's not saying much because my brothers did it when they were 8 and 9 years old. And then, I had the triathlon career and got hit by a car numerous times while out training. And I gave it up for like 14 years. It's just too dangerous. But I started having a great master's career as a runner, and then tore my meniscus and couldn't run anymore. So I got back on the bike, and all of a sudden this whole new world of to me. And I realized in that particular industry that if you show initiative, if you're creative, you can do great things just like you do in any other industry. So not only was it this thing where I'm doing it 300, 400, even 500 miles a week, I would build a team, or I would use cycling to bring people together, or I would go to work for cycling companies. And so 10 years ago, I created this event called the Belgian Waffle Ride, which has become the marquee event of its kind in the US. And basically it's this, it's a 140-mile race. 50 or 60 miles of that race is in dirt because we don't have cobblestones here. So it's a very long race, and it's very technical because you're on the road, but then you're in the dirt, then you're in rocks, then you're going through sand, then you're going through water. And it's this crazy adventure that's very hard to finish. In fact, 40% of the people that start it don't finish it. So 10 years ago, I created that as a marketing exercise for a brand I was running called Spy Optic. And what that did was it made money for the company, but also is this incredible marketing platform. And I ran Spy for 5 years and then left. And when I left, I took the Belgian Waffle Ride with me. And 5 years later, now there's 4 Belgian Waffle Rides across the country. Next year, we're going to do one in Japan, in Tokyo, and as well as Canada. And then we're adding one in Austin. So it's become this passionate thing, not unlike the Ironman is for triathletes, where people can do this crazy event in interesting and different places. And those aren't the only events that I do, but certainly that one is a signature event that I'm really proud of. And I guess, for the audience, this all harks back to my speech. Cycling was an avocation. Yes, I raced professionally and got to travel around the world and race in all these wonderful places, but it's an avocation as an adult. But avocations can be lucrative. They can be fulfilling. They can be all the things that you want. We often don't think about them as work. I never considered working in the surf industry. No one said when I went to UC Irvine, hey, the surf industry is in our backyard. You could go work for those big companies. But ultimately, that's what happened. No one said that. I was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or something important. Instead, I ended up being, doing these silly things in the sports world. But they're fulfilling and fun, and I get to bring people along the way. So that's my long-winded answer.
No, that's great. That's really great. I just want to share with you some of the comments that are coming into the discussion forum, and then there's a couple questions too. So Jacqueline Sweet says that your sharing is so inspiring, and is glad that this is being recorded so that her student can listen in later. C. Tran says it's the most inspiring talk of the day. Thank you. And here's the word inspiring again. Jan and Steve Craven say just so completely inspiring and honest. Their daughter, they write, has so many varied passions and is trying to do programs in both the arts and the sciences. This supports people who have a love in a variety of fields, majors, and interests. So yeah, it really is just incredible, to hear your story and also to sort of sense, to the extent that you can sense excitement in the room in this digital virtual space. It's kind of fun to see that. But here's a question from Jacqueline Sweet. She says, when you've experienced setbacks and hardships when you were a student and a young adult, what motivated you to press on?
I had such a nurturing family. My parents allowed me to pursue many things. So I played soccer through college. I ran, I swam. I was a competitive skateboarder at a young age. And they never said no. They said, okay, let's try this. So I had this wide breadth of experience. and a family to lean on. So I always felt secure in what I was doing, because if I failed, I could lean back on my parents and on my fraternity brothers and my roommates. I always knew that I had this network of this caring network that was there to support me. And I think that's important for people to realize. Like, sometimes we get to the end of the road and we don't know what to do, and we feel like we're all alone. But there's other people that have been through that. There's other people out there that are willing to do what it takes to listen to us, to nurture us, and to get us back on track. So as with anything in life, it's our network that gets us through. Now, sure, I've run 45 marathons, 6 cars. I have the ability to get back up and go. But what's most important is that there's people on the sidelines behind me or in front of me that are cheering me on, say, keep it going, keep it going. And that's what I rely on.
On mute. I was saying something deep and meaningful. I was just saying that when you said the word network, it got me thinking about how important those networks are. And it doesn't have to be like, the deep ones where you know everything about the person and you sort of know each other for years and years. It can also be those sort of weaker relationships that are just sort of present, and you're around people, you're connected with people in a professional network, but over time you build up a degree of trust and rapport that even if I don't know like everything about you or how many children you have or whatever, I know, oh, okay, you're that person who I've relied on in the past. And like you said, I'm going to sink back into that now. So there's a kind of famous sociologist who writes about this, and he calls them weak ties. And he says that weak ties are actually really strong. And that's always really motivated me too. If I think, well, I don't know if I can lean on my close circle for this again, because this is the 17 billionth time I've had this problem and they're sick of dealing with me. But we have these other ties too, and I think that's important. Much like, what binds people together through UC Irvine. We don't know every single faculty member, every single alum, every single student, but we all know that we're connected by this institution, and that really matters out there in the world. If there are other questions, feel free to post them in the live Q&A. People have been posting in the discussion forum too, which is totally fine. I have that open on my screen here, and I seem to be able to manage it okay so far. And if not, I just wanted, since Professor McGrain is so important to your story, I wanted to ask you to reflect on mentorship in general. Right, you clearly received excellent mentorship along the way. And I want to ask you, what's your sort of philosophy of how you give that back, how you pass that on to somebody else?
That's a great one. It's one of the most integral parts of my life. I often teach at various universities. Typically, I teach branding or creativity in business. But what ends up happening is students hang out afterwards and they chat with me. And I develop a relationship with them that transcends the school. And I'm able to field questions from them, help them along, introduce them. I have gotten so many students jobs just by dint of their curiosity and their reaching out to me. But I always take the opportunity to meet with people. If anyone ever has a question, a need, they're lost, they want to figure out where they're going to go next, it's the most fulfilling thing to be able to sit down with somebody who things are a bit murky for and counsel, inspire, nurture, share, and then be there for them. So it's not just the one coffee or lunch that you have, but to literally check in with them when they least expect it. You text them and you say, hey, how's that going? How was that interview? How are you doing? Because that's unexpected, right? And when you can do that, when you can do the unexpected for people, not only does it make them feel good about the relationship, it makes them feel good about themselves. And really, That's all we want to do in life. If we can make others feel good about themselves and inspired to be the best self that they can be, the world becomes a better place. And our place in the world becomes more important. So mentoring, teaching, these are my favorite things to do, and I will do them and not make a dime and still be fulfilled and happy.
Thank you, Michael. That might be a good place to leave this. It's such an incredible story that you shared. I've really appreciated your openness and your honesty. It's been great to hear about your journey, and also to kind of get that little kind of push from you, right? For us to do more and to keep it going. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's attended this afternoon. There's a lot more going on the rest of the day today, as well as tomorrow. And I hope that you enjoy this family day and virtual homecoming. But let's give a round of virtual applause to Michael Marckx. And
Thank you.
I'm sorry y'all had to just look at my face for the end of it, and we'll send you pictures of him and see what he looks like if you missed him before. But again, thank you all, and have a great rest of your stay at homecoming. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.